stated, I'm Jody Loza with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. So we are located in Arlington, Texas, and we cover 16 counties in our area, 10 of those which are in non-attainment. So I just wanted to take a little time today and give you guys some background on ozone status and, like she said, some of the current changes, which we have a big announcement coming up today sometime after 6 o'clock, so we're all kind of on pins and needles waiting to hear that. I've been here just a little over 7 years. Before this, my specialty was in water quality. I worked for the city of Frisco up here and did a lot of stuff with both native landscaping, green building program, and then water education and conservation. So I kind of have a background in both the world of water and now the world of air, which of course landscaping and xeriscaping, Texas Smartscape is all an important part of that. So I'm really excited to have the group of you here today who have sort of a similar interest. We'll start out here with the basics of ozone formation. So we have several different types of sources that help increase and lead to ozone in our regions in Texas. First, we have just kind of going around starting at 1 o'clock, if that was that circle was a clock there, are biogenic sources. So these are wildflowers, trees, shrubs, anything kind of in nature related to landscaping. And then we have on-road vehicles. So this is going to include both our passenger vehicles that we drive every day and also the large 18-wheelers, other delivery service trucks. Then the category of off-road engines, this is going to be things like airplanes, locomotives, things that also contribute and have large engines but don't drive on our roadways. The next category would be non-road engines. So these would be things like construction equipment or lawnmowers. So anything that operates not on our actual roads, and then also isn't like a source of transportation. And then we have area sources. This category is a little bit hard sometimes to wrap our heads around because it gets confused with point sources. But area sources, if you think about those, they are things like print shops, dry cleaners, paint manufacturers, anything where they're smaller locations, but there's a lot of them in a given area. And then finally, point sources, which these are going to be large facilities. So electric generating units, i.e. power plants, refineries, anything that has, there's not near as many of them in a particular location as area sources, but they have a much larger footprint. So in the center of the circle basically kind of gives a little graphic explanation of how ozone is formed. So basically you take very simplified version, sunlight plus volatile organic compounds plus nitrogen oxides, and that gives you ozone. So the VOCs and the NOx all come from these sources that are in the outer portion of this circle, and when we have nice sunny warm days, they react in the presence of sunlight to create ozone. So this would be an explanation as to why we see high ozone during the warmer months of the year and then also during the middle of the week because we have a lot more on-road vehicles, a lot more transportation, congestion, things like that, emitting this NOx and VOC, which then again mixes to form ozone. Another thing, there's a note at the bottom of the screen. Another contributing factor is also days where we have really low winds. Sometimes if we have really high winds in the area, even though it would normally be a high ozone day, there's enough wind kind of blowing all these, what they're called precursors, the NOx and VOCs, out of the area, so they don't, quote, hang around long enough for that chemical reaction to occur. So you will see, again, hot days in the summer where we don't have high ozone days.
Hey, Jody, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Just to the audience there, Jody's presentation, the PDF, I've already sent it out to you. It's on the panel at the bottom. You'll see a handout. So that's where the file name is TMLA 09302015. So Jody has put that there, and I dropped it there. So you could, that's where you could get the handout. You want to take note on. And thank you, Jody, for sending it out. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, the next screen kind of shows the ozone season. A lot of people assume that it's the same time frame throughout the U.S. or even from city to city or metropolitan area within the state, but actually It's not. We do have varying anywhere from as early as March 1 going through the end of November. So you can see in the DFW area, we end in October, but like Houston goes through November, and then some of our other smaller metropolitan areas start later, April or May, but also end in October or September. An important note to this slide is we are, as I mentioned, awaiting a new rule to come out by EPA today for a new ozone standard. And the proposed rule that was published suggested that the northern half of Texas, so if you just kind of roughly took a line and drew it through the middle of the state, our new ozone season will be from March 1 through the end of November, and then the southern half of the state, which would include the Houston, Galveston, and Brazoria County area, will actually have year-round ozone season. So what this means is when the EPA looks at our high ozone days, if they fall within these months, they count towards our levels. So previously, the time frame was shorter, so now Houston will have this year-long time to look at, and if they have any exceedance days, and these will all count towards what their current levels are. And there's a link at the bottom if you for the state to follow and see what these dates are and get more information. If you want to receive emails from the state about high ozone days, warnings, and alerts, you can click there and sign up. And the next slide here is courtesy of EPA. The AirNow website, link is at the bottom, has created this air quality index. The purpose behind the air quality index is to make all of this really technical information a little bit more palatable for everyday citizens. So on the left-hand side, you see two numbers. The first number is the air quality index they assign, and the second number is the actual ozone levels that fall within that. So EPA just standardized a number 0 to 500 to represent the air quality of any given day. The color codes go along with it, kind of we think is green being go, positive, so it starts with green and then goes all the way down to this kind of really dark maroon color. On the far left-hand side, it says, what should I do? So they've offered guidance to general citizens if there is an ozone day, what precautions you should take. They have a category of people they call sensitive groups, and you can think about this category as really young children, elderly, and then people that have reduced lung function, either due to asthma, chronic illness, perhaps they have like COPD. So if you fall within this unusually sensitive group, you need to start taking action to avoid prolonged exposure or really activities that cause you to have a lot of exertion, so obviously heavy breathing in and out on these days, really kind of starting with the moderate levels. It's a good idea to, we encourage our police officers up here to stay really aware of what the current ozone is. So if they do see anyone falling in these sensitive groups, they can kind of give them a sort of public service announcement. Hey, you may want to go inside during the really hottest part of the day, and or consider moving your activities just indoors. Again, you can go to the EPA AirNow website, and they have this particular logo that you can put out on any of your websites or share all for free, and they have several other really great outreach, different logos, different brochures that are also all free for you to download or put as widgets on any of your websites. This is also just another nice graphic offered to us by ozoneactionheroes.com. It kind of shows what happens when you're breathing in ozone, and it triggers a lot of health problems. So basically, when you have the lower levels, maybe in that yellow range, people who are sensitive may begin coughing, have difficulty breathing, ozone levels get a little worse, you may have a sore, scratchy throat. It can actually damage or inflame our airways, which again, why someone who already has a chronic lung disease, this has a lot more impact on their overall health. Then eventually we get to an increase of your asthma attacks, a likelihood of lung infections occurring. We do see there is evidence that on high ozone days or even during the summer months that there's an increase in emergency room visits of asthma patients. So we're seeing a link between the overall health of individuals and the ozone. So behind all of this ozone is something called the Clean Air Act, which I'm sure you've probably heard of. It has a lot of parts to it. However, The Clean Air Act, as it relates to ozone, was last amended in 1990, and basically this requires the EPA to set National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or NAAQS, as we like to call it, for 6 criteria of pollutants, which you see listed here. The reason we have the red square around the ozone is because that's what most of our areas in Texas are in non-attainment for. We do have an area out in far west Texas that is currently in non-attainment for particulate matter, and then the Houston area is not in non-attainment for particulate matter, but they're very close to the standard, so they actually have taken some measures to reduce their particulate matter. This is, if you want to think about it, when you see smog or the air looks, the sky looks kind of brownish or gray, that's usually due to particulate matter, which is just tiny little microscopic particles that accumulate in the air. A lot of times, if there's wildfires in Mexico, actually, believe it or not, African dust this past summer was blowing in from Africa, causing us to have some, not PM days that exceeded, but definitely people noticed it when they looked outside. One of the things about ozone is you don't always have that smog type gray sky, so from a public standpoint, it's a little bit more concerning because people don't also have that visual notification that, hey, the air quality looks kind of bad today. The Clean Air Act was originally adopted in 1963, and like I said, we've had these different amendments. If you're interested, it is codified in the federal regulations, and this was the first major act that allowed citizens to take suit against the Environmental Protection Agency. So, interestingly enough, there are, at any given time, quite a few lawsuits and litigation going on, especially anytime the EPA introduces new lower levels for any of these criteria pollutants. You usually see groups on both sides, the environmental side wanting the levels to be lower, and then the larger businesses or special interest groups who do not want the levels to go lower because of additional requirements and sometimes economic impact to them. So the EPA has to review these NAAQS every 5 years and take a look at them and do a lot of studies to see if they need to lower them, raise them, change them. So this gives you a quick overview of the ozone NAAQS review through history. We started with the 1 hour ozone standard, which meant an area had to be for every hour under 125 parts per billion. So that was finally designated in 1991, even though it came out in the 70s. And then in April of 2004, the EPA did revoke the 1 hour standard. They did their normal 5-year review, and they determined that they needed to change it to an 8-hour standard to better protect public health. So in April 30th, 2004, the same day that they revoked the 1 hour, they actually designated areas as non-attainment under the 1997 8-hour standard. This new standard said that over any rolling 8-hour average in a given day, an area has to be below 85 parts per billion. Then just this year, they actually revoked the 97 standard, and with that revocation, they put out the final rule to designate areas under the new 2008 8-hour standard, which you have to be less than or equal to 75 parts per billion. That rule became effective on April 6th of 2015. Because of the delay in the EPA actually lowering the standard and then finally putting an implementation to adopt it and designate areas, we're actually beyond that 5-year review. So we are, as I mentioned earlier, anxiously awaiting the new updated standard. At the very end of last year, they did put a proposed rule out for comment, and I believe last I heard the EPA received several million comments from both the general public and special interest groups. Because they put a range this time. They said we are going to lower it somewhere between 60 parts per billion and 70. And then today, the final rule will actually be published. I was actually hoping it was going to come out this morning in the Federal Register so I could share that with you all today, but I have been informed that it will come out after 6 p.m. tonight. So if you're interested, you can take a look on EPA's website. Just Google ozone new NAAQS review, and it'll take you to their ozone page, or you can go to the Federal Register, which the links are provided below, and you can search that as well. We have heard rumors, I don't know how much true it is, that if the standard is going to come out at 68 parts per billion. We've heard that the EPA wanted 70, special interest groups wanted 60. Someone at the White House wanted 65, and so they're settling on 68. But again, until that comes out, we don't have any official information on what it will actually be. So that will be to be determined. The next slide talks about a couple of different areas that we have in the state of Texas. You've been hearing me mention non-attainment areas. And again, the formal definition means that this area does not meet the NAAQS for one or more of the 6 criteria pollutants. So again, we're talking about ozone, but it could be any of the other 5. Once you're determined to be non-attainment, there are additional reporting requirements and pollution control strategies based on how you are classified. This is the reason a lot of times we see larger companies upset when the area is lowered or designated as non-attainment, because especially if they are one of these point or area sources, they have to put on pollution control devices, which many times can be in the millions of dollars in order to meet the requirements by the state and the feds. The second area that we have in Texas is our Ozone Advanced program. And basically what these metropolitan areas have done is they've agreed to take proactive steps to improve air quality. So these are not areas that are non-attainment, but they're very close. Again, the Houston area participates in the PM Advanced program. But other areas that we have, they went ahead and signed up for this, and basically they get assistance from the EPA to help them come up with different ways to keep their ozone levels down, to implement different measures and programs. It's a great group where they can talk to each other, talk to other areas, and get ideas about what are other areas doing, what's working. So I created a map here just so you could kind of have an idea of where we're talking about. You can see the red area is the non-attainment counties. So we have our 10 counties in North Texas, and then down in the Houston-Galveston area, they're also in non-attainment. 8 areas down there, and then the blue that you see are our Ozone Advanced. So we actually have one county up by us that's in Ozone Advanced. This is a list of all those different counties. So as you can see, we have the counties for DFW and Houston, and then the ozone participants are the Austin area, Corpus Christi, Hood County up in our area, and then San Antonio, then the Tyler, Longview, Marshall, and then Waco. So the names that I've put there on the screen are what their Ozone Advanced programs are called, and then I would just give you the associated actual counties and areas. The next slide I want to go over, the next couple of slides actually, I'm going to kind of show you, all right, we've been talking about ozone, been talking about what it does to the areas, but where does it come from? You know, what contributes to it? And so I've got graphs for the DFW region and also for the Austin region to show you. Most of the areas in Texas are what are called NOx limited. What that means is our high ozone days are driven more by NOx than the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds. So if you can imagine, if you have a big bowl of red marbles and a big bowl of blue marbles, and you have twice as many blue as red, and someone says, pair up every blue marble with a red marble. Well, at some point you're going to run out of red marbles, and you're just going to have all these blue marbles still left over with nothing to pair up with. So in this scenario, the red marbles are NOx and the blue marbles are VOCs. So basically what that means, if you remember that very first slide, it takes NOx and VOC with sunlight to make ozone. So once you run out of NOx, the VOCs are still there, but they don't have anything to combine with to create ozone. So the reason that we focus on, and most areas in Texas focus on NOx reduction measures, is for that very fact. If we reduce VOCs, it's not to say it isn't a good thing, but there's so much excess VOC that we won't see as much impact on ozone. Whereas if we reduce the amount of NOx that's out there, less red marbles to mix with the blue, therefore less ozone being made. There's one slight exception to this, which is the Houston Ship Channel area, and then also around the refineries. Those particular industries put out a lot of highly reactive VOCs, and so there are special rules and special air permits that the state puts out for those areas to help reduce those highly reactive. And what I mean by that is there's a huge list of volatile organic compounds. Some of them react very quickly with NOx, some of them not so much. The oil and gas industry that we see up here, from all the different gas, the Barnett Shale, the Eagle Ford Shale, all the different activities that are going on, those emit very low reactive VOCs, so they don't pose as much of a potential threat in terms of ozone. So again, but the Houston area puts out things like benzene, butadiene 1,3, and some other ones that are. So again, that's kind of an exception to this NOx limited rule. So looking at this pie chart, you can see that the majority of our NOx comes from on-road mobile sources, almost 50%, and then followed by non-road engines. And this is why, me being in transportation, we have a big role to play in air quality. Since on-road mobile is our largest impactful source, we want to try to do everything we can to clean up our vehicles and look at alternative fuels, alternative transportations to hopefully reduce that piece of the pie and then reduce our overall NOx. The next slide is VOCs for our region. So VOCs are different. They're driven by area sources. Our map excludes the oil and gas. We kind of get a special inventory done since we do have a lot of drilling going on in our area. So 46% comes from area sources. On-road is only 15%, so again, has some impact, but not as much as our area and our oil and gas drilling. This is the same pie NOx for the Austin Round Rock area. Interestingly enough, you can see on-road mobile is also their major source. This really holds true for pretty much most of Texas. The only place you would see on-road mobile kind of fall off to maybe being second is really rural areas where they don't have a lot of transportation, a lot of vehicles, a lot of heavy 18-wheeler traffic. And again, here's our VOCs, also highly impacted by the area sources, again followed by on-road mobile. Thought you guys might find this interesting. There are the biogenic emissions that we talked about in the first slide. Biogenic emissions are really different than the on-road and the area and point sources. They sort of change every day. So we have trees, shrubs, wildlife outside, and the emissions being put out by the trees really depends on, is it a sunny day, how much rain have we had? We see trees sort of shut down during drought, so they don't put out as many VOCs. So there is information out there, especially from the EPA, on what the biogenic emissions are, but it varies every day. When we talk about things like on-road vehicles, we can say, hey, June 15th of 2015 is very similar to June 15th of 2014 or July 15th of 2015, because in general, they're the same number of passenger vehicles on the roads, 18-wheelers coming through the area, obviously area sources operating, whereas the biogenic emissions are 100% controlled by the meteorological conditions, and we all know that that varies from not only day to day, but hour to hour throughout the day. But as you guys are offering information to your clients or your friends about, hey, what kind of trees should I plant? I wanted to show you this really abbreviated list of some of the trees that put out the most. They're called isoprenes, which is a VOC that contributes to ozone. This list actually comes from the U.S. Forest Service. I've provided a link at the bottom of the slide. The list is multiple pages, so it has both trees and shrubs on it, if you're interested. So one point to note is we know we have a lot of oak trees in Texas. That is one of the worst producers of VOC emissions. So we see, especially up here, a lot of landscaping companies and also developers, home builders planting oak trees, especially live oaks. So keeping those green leaves year-round is actually not a great thing. So we encourage maybe to look at some other alternatives to the live oak or even crepe myrtles. They're not quite as bad, but they are on that kind of top of the list, and we see a lot of those being planted. I know they're easily accessible, especially crepe myrtles are inexpensive trees, but we'd be better off choosing some other types, not only for, as you guys all know, having a variety of plants is always better in trees, but also just to help with our ozone emissions. This slide shows you ozone exceedance days. I went ahead and did the Austin, DFW, Houston, Galveston, and San Antonio area. Each is represented by a different color on the bar chart. Obviously, there's other regions in Texas, but these are kind of the main ones that are either in non-attainment or are also participating in the ozone advance. So you can see I just did a snapshot from 2008 to 2015. So these are the number of days that we exceeded the current standard of 75 parts per billion. There's not necessarily a trend that you really see going down. You'll notice there in the middle of the graph that 2011 was a really bad year. You guys all remember it was exceptionally hot and exceptionally dry. So we kind of had the perfect conditions for high ozone days. Last year was kind of unseasonably cool. So we didn't see as many days, and then this year we're creeping back up some. We had a great beginning to the ozone season because of all the rain, but as you all know, what tends to happen is we go into drought, and so then we saw some ozone days popping up on these hotter, drier days. But the good news is, if we look at the graph in terms of where are we at, what is our level, you can definitely see a trend down. The Austin area in this time frame, looking from 2000 to current, has seen about a 25% decrease in their ozone levels. Houston, 29%, DFW, 21%, and San Antonio, 7%. So this is a very positive story and tells a great story of all the efforts that the different regions are doing for all the programs they've implemented to bring ozone down. The new standard, or sorry, the standard that's on here is a 75 parts per billion, that dotted blue line, so that's our goal. So you can see Austin is below that currently. And of course that blue line is going to shift after 6 p.m. today. So Austin may or may not fall below that blue line depending on what they come out. If it comes out at 70, they'll still be fine, but lower, you know, the 65 to 68 range, they may be right there at that level. One other interesting thing to note here is that the design value that you see on the left-hand side is a concept that you may hear talked about out there. They'll say, well, our design value is 81 or 85. What that means is that every monitor that is recognized by the EPA, so those have to be certified, measures ozone levels every day. These are recorded through what I was mentioning as the ozone season, and then they take at the end of the ozone season the 4th highest average at any of the monitors. And so we call that the driving monitor. So for example, our driving monitor right now is Denton, or Denton Airport South to be specific. So they take the 4th highest average, and then they, or sorry, the 4th highest level, and then they average it over a 3-year period. This is why you see consecutive 3-year periods at the bottom of the graph. So right now our design value is based on 2013, 14, and 15. So we're at 81 parts per billion. So that means that our Denton monitor, the 4th highest average thus far. The design value is not finalized until after the ozone season ends, and then all the data is approved by both the state and then by EPA. We don't normally see a big change in what our monitor value shows, but we do have to wait for their official announcement that they've accepted all the data. So that's kind of the background introduction to what is ozone, where are we at, what are we looking towards. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on, so now we have obviously this ozone issue. What are we doing about it? What are the different areas doing to try and get us in attainment and in line with the federal and state standards? There's a great organization called the Texas Clean Cities Coalition. This first slide just shows you the contacts for Dallas, Fort Worth, Central Texas, Alamo, or San Antonio area, and then Houston, Galveston. Each one of these coalitions is part of the larger Clean Cities, which is the national organization, and then these are like the local chapters. Dallas, Fort Worth, just talk about our program for a little bit. We started in 1995. We were one of the first clean cities under the new Energy Policy Act. And initially, or the main focus behind Clean Cities is to promote the use of alternative fuels and also to reduce our dependence on foreign sources of petroleum. So if you think about earlier when I showed you the pie graphs and there was a large portion from on-road vehicles contributing to NOx, the idea is using alternative fuels or even alternative forms of transportation will hopefully take a chunk out of that piece of the pie and bring the ozone levels down. So the different things that our particular Clean Cities looks at doing is facilitating the deployment of alternative fuel vehicles, also looking at the installation of alternative fueling infrastructure, so things like CNG, quote, gas stations. We also play a big part in putting in the charging stations for electric vehicles, looking at the increased use of alternative fuel blends to traditional gasoline. We also support the sale of hybrid and electric vehicles and kind of just encourage and inform the general public about what their options are. Another area that we target is the idle reduction technologies for heavy-duty trucks and vehicles. Although there are a lot fewer 18-wheelers on the roadway, the amount of NOx that they put out is tenfold compared to what a regular vehicle puts out. So if we can put alternative fuel or alternative idling technologies on an 18-wheeler, it has a huge impact to the amount of NOx being put out in the environment. I don't know if you have seen any of these newer truck stops, and they look like big yellow, almost like air vent tubes that come down, and you'll see the 18-wheelers kind of all parked in a line. And the purpose of those is it's idling reduction technology. So instead of these 18-wheelers having to go and park like at a large gas station or a rest stop and idle all night long in order to either keep their heat in the wintertime or their AC in the summer going, they actually plug into these auxiliary units, and it allows the basic functioning of their vehicles, air, heat, their radio, their lights, to function without having to actually have their vehicle turned on and idling. It makes a huge difference, because if you think about, you have all these 18-wheelers in a very concentrated area all idling, you know, sometimes 8 hours while they're sleeping overnight or on their mandatory rest stops. It's a great alternative to them doing that. The program, as I said, is really important. We're looking to improve air quality, not only ozone, but also looking at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. If you guys follow kind of current information, you know that the Clean Power Plan is coming out from the EPA and from the White House, and so there's going to have to be some drastic reductions in our amount of CO2. So another thing the Dallas-Fort Worth Clean Cities and Clean Cities Journal looks at is also those greenhouse gas emissions. They want to also enhance our energy security and create jobs in the U.S. related to the energy sector. We have over 150 stakeholders from around our region. These are representatives from cities, counties, and other special interest groups, including private companies. It's completely free to become a DFW stakeholder. We also have, and I know some of the other clean cities do as well, specific committees that target at different areas, because obviously not every group is going to be interested in the same thing. We provide events, trainings. We also help promote funding sources that are out there. So there's our website if you're interested in the DFW Clean Cities. And then finally, with regarding ours, these are some of these incentives I was talking about. The U.S. Department of Energy is who helps back Clean Cities, and they have different money available sometimes, or different programs going on in education. So the first one is for alternative commercial lawn equipment, and then the second one is the Propane Council of Texas. So this would apply to, both of these would apply to anyone, not just our area. And they offer up to $1,000 for propane mower or conversion. So if you're looking to either switch from gasoline to propane, or you want to convert your existing equipment so that you don't have to purchase all new, you can apply for one of these grants to help you with that. We also have additional alternative fuel mower information here available if any of you guys want any of these handouts or our publications. So that's a little bit about the Clean Cities. I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about the Ozone Advanced programs that we've been talking about. So Ozone Advanced in general promotes local actions to reduce ozone, as we talked about nitrogen and VOCs, in attainment areas to help continue to maintain the NAAQS. It encourages states, tribes are also eligible, and local governments to take proactive steps to keep their air clean and to reduce ozone. So we have a little bit about the Central Texas Ozone Program. Again, this would be like the Austin area. On the right there, you see their logo. And they are looking to stay in attainment with the ozone standard, hopefully even with a new one coming out. They want to continue to reduce ozone. And in the event they do get designated as non-attainment, by having all these different control measures already implemented, it will help them become out of non-attainment or become into attainment as quickly as possible. They will want to reduce the number of high ozone days, and then, as I mentioned before, minimize that cost to the region related to potential future non-attainment designation. You know, areas are always looking for new large industries to come and build plants and build other facilities, and a lot of times we don't realize that it doesn't necessarily make the news, but sometimes these large facilities choose areas that are in attainment because it is less expensive to build their plants. It is less expensive to operate. So they will, for example, not build something within the counties that are in our non-attainment or Houston area, but just outside of it, or go to the San Antonio or Austin area for that very reason. I think one of the probably in most recent history examples is the Toyota plant that was, they were looking at DFW or Houston, but opted to not build in either of those, and that was a main driving factor. to them making that decision. The Texas Ozone Advanced program in Austin, they've actually been participating in what was previously not the Ozone Advanced program, but had the same goals for quite a while. So we've seen the iteration of them going from the Ozone Flex program to Early Action Compact, starting back as early as 2002. So there's a lot of great programs that have already been going on in Central Texas to keep them from being in non-attainment. Some of the different regional measures that they can help promote are the regional ride-sharing program. They have a website, My Commute Solutions. So basically this is obviously trying to reduce the number of vehicles on the road. If you're interested in carpooling or looking at some alternative ways to get to and from work, it's a great website to visit or also to promote amongst your company. They have Clean Air Force programs where that's the program that their partners join in. They help promote ozone alerts and other public information related to ozone. As you guys may or may not know, TMLA is a great coalition member of the Central Texas Ozone Advanced program. They also promote the Lone Star Clean Fuels Alliance. They coordinate all sorts of great outreach and education. They also help run the Low Income Repair and Replacement Assistance Program, which I'll give you guys a little bit more information about here in a minute. And then they provide technical assistance to anyone who needs it to support putting in these different programs that they offer. You can see here the number of reduction commitments that the Clean Air program members have committed to. On the left, we have the different emission reduction strategies. We have the CAC members, other entities, and then the total. So great. We have 335 from the members, 156 from other entities, so almost 500 commitments that have been made to help reduce the amount of ozone and VOCs and NOx in the area. Another program that we have up here in our area is the Hood County Clean Air Action Coalition. They also are members, and their mission is made up of businesses, schools, and local government and citizens, again, to promote clean air. They recognize the health effects that high ozone can have on their community, especially those special interest groups we talked about. And so they want to hopefully improve the air quality so that these different groups don't have these health effects. They work really closely with us. They're kind of have an advantage, I guess, since they're right next to a non-attainment area, and we've been doing this for quite a while. So we regularly help them out and help them with implementing programs. They work really closely with the state TCEQ and the EPA as well. And their website here is listed at the bottom. In their action plan, which is the plan they have to put in place, I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier with talking about Central Texas, but as a part of the Ozone Advanced program, they have to put an action plan together that has to be accepted by EPA. So this action plan, the measures that Hood County is committed to is they hold stakeholder meetings monthly. They create a great website. They encourage partnership with us, the Clean Cities and Air North Texas, public education campaign very similar to what the Central Texas program does. They are adding highway improvement projects to reduce congestion, the idling restrictions, and just a full list of different things they're trying to do to make their county stay out of non-attainment. Then after looking at the Ozone Advanced areas, the non-attainment air quality programs, I have a whole bunch of slides on the different programs and projects that we have going on in DFW. I'm not going to bore you by going through and reading each slide, but in the PDF that Dr. Gu is great enough to send out to you guys, it lists all of our different programs and the website links and who you would need to contact for more information. Some of these programs are also run in other areas of the state as well, so feel free to look through them at your leisure and reach out to us or to myself directly if you have any questions about them, and I'll be happy to go a little more in depth on the programs. I just want to kind of highlight some of our photographs and logos for the different programs that we do. Over in the right-hand side, you heard me mention a moment ago Air North Texas. That's our big public awareness campaign that's run by our marketing team here in our air quality program. Be Air Aware is their slogan, and then next to it you see a little armadillo. This is actually brand new for this year. We did a competition at UT Arlington. We took one of the classes that they had that was in marketing and public relations and had them, as part of their semester-long project, submit different logos that we could use to promote high ozone days. And so this was the winner, and this is Arlo the armadillo. And basically you can see the green bands in the middle of his back. So what we have done is the green bands coordinate with the air quality index that I showed you earlier. So this is on a green day, so when ozone is good, and then they turn orange and he kind of stands up on his back feet, and then red, he's curled up in a ball. So as opposed to just having the plain color air quality index, he gets used in a lot of public promotions, especially with children's education. So that, again, like I said, is another new component to our outreach program. Air North Texas has a lot of giveaways, if you're in our area, anytime you want to have an event, we are more than happy, if we can't make it out to your actual event, to send you guys printout publications, giveaways, lunch bags, wristbands, water bottles, all sorts of fun stuff that we have related to air quality. And then we have our Clean School Bus program, Electric Vehicles North Texas. Towards the bottom you see RSVP, which is our local smoking vehicle program. The state of Texas, TCEQ, actually runs a smoking vehicle program, so that if you see any vehicles on the roadways that are smoking, you can call or go to TCEQ's website and report it. If you're in the DFW area, you can actually call Pound Smoke from your cell phone, or go to our smokingvehicleprogram.net website and report the vehicle. This isn't an enforcement program in terms of we don't, as a COG, we aren't able to issue tickets or citations, but for everyone that we do receive, and the state does the same thing, they do receive a letter explaining to them they are in violation of the smoking vehicle program, and then we also provide assistance to get their vehicles repaired and other education and information pieces. One thing that's very interesting about the smoking vehicle program that some people don't know is it does apply to all vehicles on Texas roadways. So we're not just talking about vehicles that are registered or have Texas plates, and we're not just talking about gasoline vehicles. For those of you in non-attainment area, you know that we do have to just get our gasoline vehicles inspected, but smoking vehicle applies to diesel vehicles. So a lot of these young teenagers put those big smoke stacks on their dualies and drive around, think it's really cool to put out black smoke, but they actually are violating the smoking vehicle law, and they can receive fines if a police officer sees them doing that. So we kind of use this as a positive spin to educate people before maybe they get a ticket. And again, there's some of our anti-idling and our Drive a Clean Machine, Aircheck Texas program, and other pictures on this. So I did want to mention here before we wrap up the LIRAP program that was on the slide earlier. In our region, we call it the Aircheck Texas program, and I'm just going to click through the other programs to that for you. Aircheck Texas is actually available in all areas that participate in the inspection and maintenance program for emissions testing. So not the areas that just do the safety test, but any area that does the actual emissions test. It offers financial assistance to low and moderate income vehicle owners. One thing I wanted to make you guys aware of, and maybe you can pass the information along, a lot of people think this is for very low income individuals, but because it is based on your net income, not your gross income, there are a lot of people who fall in what we would consider middle class America who are actually eligible for this program. So if your vehicle fails an emissions test within 30 days, you can apply to the program to either get a repair voucher or a replacement voucher. The repair vouchers will help you with up to $600 to get the emissions-related components of your vehicle fixed, and then the replacement program is up to $3,500 to purchase a new vehicle. On the replacement side, if your vehicle is 10 years or older, you're also eligible to do it outside of it having failed an emissions test. The program just recently, with the close of this last legislative session, was fully funded again. For about 4 years, we haven't received but a tiny portion of funds to run this program. So I know in our area, we only were able to open the replacement portion for a month or two because we would run out of funds so quickly. But it is going to be fully funded. We are ramping up here with new staff. I know so are some of the other areas in Texas, and it will be a year-round program again. So netcog.org, Aircheck Texas, or if you just Google the LIRAP or Aircheck Texas program, Drive a Clean Machine, there's also information that you'll find specific to all of the areas. The program itself, the guidelines are all set by the state, but who runs the program in each region is slightly different. Sorry. Then, as I said, there's some other slides here about air quality funding opportunities we have and other programs in our area. Try Parking It, that is pretty interesting. That is the program that tries to help people do ride sharing, log alternative commutes, and it gives incentives. And then, of course, our bike walk transit transportation, trying to create a connectable from rail stations to walking to your employment destination in our region. And then our Complete Streets is also another program to accommodate these alternative modes of transportation, and as you can see in the picture, to try to green up and put some more plants in the inner city where we've just before seen pavement. Other clean air strategies that you guys as individuals can think of to help with all of this is postpone mowing to a day with healthy air, conserve electricity, consider using light bulbs that are energy efficient, coordinate on-site employee lunches or encourage people to bring their lunches to work. Do webinars, which is great because you guys are doing that today. Reduce water. Use Smartscape plans. TexasSmartscape.org comes out of our program here, our environmental side to our COG. And then use alternative fuel lawn care equipment instead of your traditional gasoline. Again, here's our contact information. Jenny and I work together on this program. We do have a website, netcog/ozone, that has a lot of this information about the history of ozone and then links to other programs that we offer up here. I'm happy now to take any questions, or you can email or call me at any time. And I just wanted to thank everybody for joining in today, and I hope that you learned a little bit more about ozone and some of the great things that the different areas in Texas are doing.
All right, well, thank you, Jody. Jody, we have a question here.
Okay.
One of your slides showed the VOC of the trees, but what about the amount of the oxygen the same tree provide? So do high VOC trees produce more or less oxygens? This question was raised by David. I kind of had a similar, questions about that slide, because for us horticulturists, landscapers, the more trees, the better.
Yes. So definitely the more trees, the better.